Theoretical biologist Stuart Kauffman sees basic connections between the simplest organisms and humans, an evolutionary homogeneity.
There's human agency, and we all know what it is. It's acting for reasons, purposes, and motives with the naive psychology that sometimes, you may not have heard this, it's called armchair psychology. It says sometimes people act for the reasons and purposes that they say they're acting for. And that's being an agent. It's not being an unconscious agent. It's what, in this sense, it's what you could be held responsible for in court. That's human agency. The question is whether or not we can extend that notion of agency beyond humans. Was my dog Windsor an agent? Well, I'm persuaded he was. And if you've ever lived with an animal, you know, a mammal, you would be convinced of it too. Probably if we lived with crocodiles, we'd be convinced of it too. I'm convinced that a bacterium swimming up a glucose gradient is an agent. Are we stretching it? Sure. I don't want to attribute consciousness to the bacterium, but I don't want to not either. I don't know. Agentness isn't some mystical stuff. It isn't. Being an agent, I don't think, requires us to invoke an immaterial soul or something else that sort of invests you like a purple fog, and then you're an agent. So that means, in the case of the bacterium, leaving out quantum mechanics, there's a perfectly good classical account of what's going on in the bacterium when it swims up the glucose gradient. An agent is, by definition, an entity that can act on its own behalf in an environment. That's what we mean by an agent.
So, in order to have agency, we have to have some information.
Right, and a way of formalizing what you just said is that we may want to say that you don't have an agency unless it can make at least one choice. Sugar that way or not. Or a more complicated choice, yuck versus yum. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. But yuck or not, or yum or not, suffices. So we may want to, and in fact, Philip Clayton and I, in the article that we wrote, impose that condition, the capacity to make at least one choice.
And that agency and that information is extensible from the bacterium to us.
Mm-hmm.
You mean in terms of evolution or in terms of life forms?
Yes. Both, right?
Yeah, right.